Hey everybody, this is Kara Crossway Brindle back again with another hopefully interesting video for all of you with my good friends and colleagues, Alex and Liliana. Say hi, everyone.
Hey.
So I asked them to come on this video because I get all sorts of ideas from the work that we do with our colleagues. And recently, the question came up about retirement as a therapist, which is kind of a bold thing to talk about. It's not really being talked about in a lot of spheres, and I think we should. We should talk about it. So you've seen other videos from us on contingency plans, retirement, maybe for medical reasons, or maybe more of like a stressful reason. But I want to talk about it as an intentional step, which is like, I'm done being a therapist, I'm moving on to something else. So obviously, you can both share as much or as little as you want to. I'll go first. I had the thought of when am I going to retire in the last month? And I don't know if that's because I'm a mother now or if it's because I'm hitting milestones in my business where I'm hitting, 10 years or 12 years or whatever that looks like. But it showed up and I wanted to honor that. So here we are on a video talking about it. Either of you want to share if this has happened to you? Have you had the thought about retirement?
I can definitely speak on that. Yeah, yes.
Both of you are like, oh, hell yeah, your faces.
Yes. I can share a little bit about when it was time for me to leave law enforcement. Because I was a probation officer. I was in law enforcement, probation officer slash diversion officer for a good 10 years. And I was just noticing when I was in that role that it was just I would dread going into work. I was not liking it. I was look at my schedule and I would sigh and I would be like, oh, it's not so much the client, but it was the profession. It was the profession itself. When I thought about waking up, going into the building, stepping into my role, it was like it wasn't bringing me joy, excitement anymore. It was actually becoming dreadful. Like, oh, I have to go to court. I have to do these reports. I have to do visits. I don't really want to do this. And I started noticing that there was a change in my thought process and emotions regarding
Mhm.
the profession. I want to, again, you guys know me, you're human first, and then you're professional second. And so when I started noticing that it started impacting me on a human personal level, where I had a bad day at work. And so I'm having a bad day at home. I'm bringing stuff home. I'm not sleeping. I'm not feeling comfortable in my role. I'm second guessing. I'm annoyed. There's more, when I define the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing as reality. When I have a lot of fear over something that hasn't happened and I'm letting it dominate my thoughts and my emotions, and I'm not, and there's constant fear showing up. It's like I'm not here anymore. I'm not enjoying this anymore. So those were like pivotal signs for me to say, I need to retire. I need to step away from this because somebody new, refreshed, passionate, and come in and step in the role and do it better. And it's not I think it's not a judgment of your character. It's just a judgment of your growth. It speaks volumes of your growth. Outgrown this position. I've outgrown, now if you ask me, would you go back and be a probation officer? No, you can't pay me enough to go back there. You can't pay me enough to be a supervisor in that field. Why? Don't get me wrong. For those people who love it, more power to you. But I know that part of me, that chapter of my life closed. And when I stepped into counseling, I felt that passion. I felt that love. I felt that enthusiasm. Like, oh, let me see my schedule. Who's new? Who's gonna? Oh, I can't wait to meet with them and follow up with what we. There's a huge level of excitement, and I think when we're therapists and you feel like you're being called, or you feel this new passion awakening within you, and you're
Mhm.
starting to feel like it's really drawing me, it's pulling me, I will go into the training and, like, for example, I feel like I'm being called into training, being called into consulting more. I've been very transparent with everybody on that from a depth union perspective and addiction and trauma. I feel like called to that. So then I feel like, okay, I can dabble a little bit in both, but focus a lot of my research, my energy, a little bit more towards the pivot. Still do this, but a little bit more, I would say, slowly doing uh, you know, uh, 60-40, and then eventually moving into a 50, and then eventually slowly transitioning. And there's this sense of satisfaction where it's like, okay, this feels right. I'm pivoting, I'm transitioning from one to another, and it sits for me. It's like it it sits well within my soul. This feels good. This feels natural. And so that's how when I start normalizing to be where like this is a new passion. It's not that I am abandoning or I failed in what I
Right.
previously did. It's that I'm evolving and growing and creating a new chapter of my profession as a human. So
Beautiful.
that's
Love
how I
that.
would.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you just described quite a process there that a lot of people would resonate with. Of like they don't just jump into something; it's a slow burn and build up,
Mhm.
which could be part of the pivoting that we love to talk about. And also, when I think of like retiring as a therapist, I think of a hard stop too, where it's like there's a finality to it. Like I don't think many people move towards that word retirement expecting to jump back in, much to Alex, you pointed out, like you never go back to being a probation officer. And I think if any of us elected to retire as a therapist, there would be an assumption that we're moving on to something else, right?
Correct. Correct.
Liliana, what would you say to this and your thought process?
I was just thinking of anyone who has met me and know my trajectory, they think that I'm insane and they're trying to like put me in a label in order to put me somewhere, right? So let me walk you through this. When I went to school, undergrad school, I my undergrad program is on multimedia. I'm a graphic designer. And then, like, I don't want to be in a dark room. I don't want to just be staring at a computer. And my family had a business. So I decided, well, let me go do business administration. I'm going to need this. So then I pivot and I got my MBA. As I was working in my MBA and helping companies, there's a lot of family dynamics. And then I pivot and then I started volunteering because I needed more. So then I changed professionally and I went back to school, Colorado State, and I became an advanced mediator. Please do not write that down.
Don't
And
don't call you for that.
I'm not calling for that. So I started working with Jefferson County in their courts. And when I was there, I got called. I was curious and I got called to do something else. So then I started searching, and that's how I went back to school and I got my master's in counseling. And even when I did that, I was very like, I want to do this. And then I keep pivoting, as Alex put it, because what is it that I've been called for? What is it that I'm noticing? Where is my growth? What is giving me energy? And when we talk about retirement, we have this perception from past generations that we get to a certain age and we should retire and we're done. As if you stop living. If there's no more brain activity, like there's nothing. When in reality, lately, especially in the last 10 years, we know that retiring, it looks different. It may be looking for volunteering opportunities, looking for part-time work, like looking for something else, which means that we're not done. We're constantly seeking something else. And usually has to do with being in relationship with either family when we stop professionally or moving into other areas. I say this because this is what the research is telling us, that we as humans are complex. We are never done and we are seeking other opportunities, other growth. And this is the first time in history that multiple generations are coexisting. So therefore, we're getting a lot of mixed messages in regards to what retirement may look like. Part of the joke when we started before we recorded was like, when do you want to retire? I was like, when I win the lotto, what would I do? My husband told me that it's very hard to win the lotto if I don't play the lotto, which is true. But then
That's very
even
true.
having conversations with colleagues that know me, they're like, you will never retire, which is true. I
Mhm.
will never retire. I will never be done. So then the question is, where am my life, my growth, my calling, where am I going to go? And that I don't know because I'm not there yet. I can fantasize, and we all have this fantasy about retirement, but that is just that, a fantasy of what we're being told.
Mhm.
And then it's up to us how we're gonna reimagine that role and what would that look like for you, your
Mhm.
needs, your experience, your wants, your desires. That's what I will say. It's life is complicated, retirement is complicated for everyone, and it looks different for everyone.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way to put it. I feel like what we're talking about in this video is redefining what retirement means. Like in other industries, retirement is that hard stop, we're done working. And maybe what from both of what you're sharing, maybe it's more about like we pivot towards passion projects or we move towards something else that's interesting,
Yeah.
and that there's not really like as much of a clean break as like other industries where retirement means done. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I encourage our viewers to watch the colleagues that are telling us they're retired and what that looks like, because each of them have approached it differently. One has started a brand new business, another let their licenses go. So they're like literally not going back to therapy. A third that I'm thinking of is building up other um, projects that work with colleagues because they enjoy that right now in their life. And I think it's natural that we all get to a place where, like, let me take an inventory of what's important right now. Is it family? Is it professional growth? Is it personal growth? And based on those, I think it informs our choices. So I think for me, as I sit here and reflect with both of you on this video, the question of when do I want to retire showed up because I was like, I don't want to hold the heavy forever. Like as my daughter gets older, I want to be present for her. I don't want to be burnt out. And I think you both, you're nodding, so I know you know
Yeah.
me really well, so you know what I'm saying. Um, and that might probably just look like a pivot, but if I was to conceptualize it as retirement, much to Liliana, your point, it's going to look different for each person. Does it mean your licenses are lapsing? Does it mean you take off your website? Does it mean you build something completely new? Or does it mean that you integrate it into something else, like Alex, you're doing with your second business? I think that's the beautiful thing, so that we can all make retirement look any way we want to. And maybe it's not about like monetary value, it's much as like, I want to work in a different way or in a different capacity than I am right now as a therapist.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, love it.
Yeah, correct. I concur 100%. I think the other thing that I would really caution people is listen, manage your internal dialogue that's holding you back, because that inner saboteur is always going to want to come in and say you failed. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? At the end of the day, it's what's going to make you happy, what's going to
Yeah.
make you look forward, what's going to feed your soul and passion in that moment. When I was leaving probation to pivot to counseling, I thought, like, you're leaving a state job, you're leaving a pension, you're leaving, people normally fight to get a state job. And once you're there, you stay there until you retire because of all the benefits. Yeah, but that's not my story. That's not my narrative. That doesn't feed me. And so, yeah, the risk of jumping a sense of security and going on your own is a whole new adventure, but exciting, and I'm up for it. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I feel good about it. And being able to trust yourself, your heart, your passion to launch. I think I want to normalize and call it, because I think we've all been there where it's like, what if it doesn't work out? What if we have that inner saboteur try to come, but at the same time, when you follow your heart, if you follow your passion and follow your heart, money will follow.
Yeah, that's the worry, right? Sometimes retirement's like, I'm getting old, I'm done with the shit. There's an ageism component to this, right? As I'm hearing both of you talk of, like, people assume that retirement comes with age, so that there isn't the accusation of failure, that you've established a long-lasting career, and so no one can accuse you of like bailing out too soon. And yet I see these colleagues of ours trailblazing. They're there in their 40s, maybe their 50s if they haven't disclosed their age, and they're retiring as therapists because they have other projects they want to work on, not because they're too old or that their health is the biggest concern, although that might be a factor behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I think it really is something new for us to think about. Is like, most people don't think about retirement. They think about build a practice, make X amount of dollars, work this many years in the field. But I don't think we naturally start to think about, like, do I want to do this for 20 years, 10 years, 15, 2? I think now more than ever, people are normalizing, like, it's okay to change it up.
Yeah.
So if there was a last thought for our viewers on this concept of working in the field and retirement, what would that be?
I think that when you guys were talking about retirement and aging, it's completely different nowadays in the present moment that it was probably 1-2 generations ago. So your retirement will be like what you want it to look like.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And you will pivot as you have to, because it's your life and you get to decide, what you do and what would that look like. And everyone else is just noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't let
And
them fear, right?
yeah, I'm going to actually share something that my husband's retired, and so he says, you know what you get to do in retirement? What? Feed your fire.
Ah,
Like, how
Mm,
so? My husband loves to bake. And so, and you guys know this, he loves to bake and he loves to cook. And so, one of the things he loves to do in his retirement is bake and cook and create new recipes. And no one's telling him no. No one's telling him because he's retired. And so, for you, I would share that with you guys. If you're going to retire, pivot and feed the fire.
yeah.
Make sure it's feeding your fire. If it's parenting, you're retiring because you're going to go into parenting, feed that fire, feed it, be the best parent out there as great as you can be. There's some great advice from Mother with Mayonnaise, by the way, out there.
He's
Commercial.
referencing viewer,
Yeah,
he's referencing my blog. That's what
yeah.
he's talking about. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Alex. I do not
So
have it all figured out. I've been a parent for almost
I
a year,
mean,
and that's it.
because I mean, I read it and I tell my husband, look, and he was like, oh my God, that's so accurate. I wish someone would have said something to me about this.
Yeah.
And so you start realizing, feed your fire. You don't know who you're helping as you retire, as you move into this new pivot. You're going to notice that at the rate that you feed your fire, others are going to take advantage of it. So
Right.
just
Love
follow
that.
your.
I would say my final advice for our viewers is however it's defined, pivot, retirement, or sabbatical. I
Mhm.
know we didn't touch on that in this video, but I know that's also another opportunity for folks who are burnt out or just need some space to find their fire again. um, that's an option that people can pause and reevaluate. I know a lot of colleagues have modeled it's okay to slow down when you're a parent versus maybe you're off and running. Like you're both, your kids are grown, you're established, you have a different freedom that I probably do right now. And so just honoring that each person's in a different spot and that all of those are opportunities, just however you define it.
Mhm.
there you go.
Yes.
Retirement opportunity.
Mhm.
Feed
Love
the
that.
fire.
Yeah.
So hopefully this helps all of you who might have had the very human thought of when do I want to be done with therapy, whether it's out of frustration, burnout, or just wanting to pursue something else. I think the three of us can champion that it's okay to consider those possibilities and feed that fire. And hopefully this helps you. So thank you, Alex and Liliana, for having this conversation. I really appreciate you both.
Oh.
Welcome.
All right, viewers, stay tuned for more videos. We'll see you next time.